Hello, Serial listeners. Sarah Koenig here. What's happening this week is not a new trial. It's a hearing. It's actually a continuation of Adnan's petition for post-conviction relief. That's something you try only after you've exhausted your regular appeals. It's kind of a last-ditch effort. He first filed that petition, in 2010, I think, long before I got interested in this case. In fact, I think the very first time I talked to Adnan was right when the court had ruled against him, had denied this petition. But he appealed it, and that's when it started to get interesting. In broad strokes, Adnan was arguing that his defense attorney at the time of his trial was incompetent, that she made mistakes that were so bad that he should get some form of relief, that maybe his conviction for killing Hae-Min Lee should be overturned. One of those mistakes, Adnan claimed, was that his attorney never contacted a potential alibi witness, Asia McClain. Remember her? Anyway, after season 1 of Serial ended, some new stuff came to light, including some new evidence regarding Asia McClain and about problems with the crucial cell tower testimony at Adnan's trial. And over the past year, the wheels of justice rolled slowly, like they do. And finally, this week, the Baltimore City Circuit Court will hear this new evidence. We'll hear what some new witnesses have to say about what happened or didn't happen at Adnan's original trial 16 years ago. Right now, it's Tuesday, February 2nd, 2016, the night before the hearing starts. As soon as I'm done recording this, I'm getting in my car and driving to Baltimore, and I'm going to show up at the courthouse at 8 a.m. tomorrow, like they told me to, and I'm going to watch and listen, and I'm going to tell you what happens. Not week by week, but day by day. I'm fascinated to see who exactly will testify, what they'll say, and how it will be to have all these people back in one courtroom. All right. Now we're going to refresh your memory about the case of Adnan Syed, and then after that, it'll magically have turned into tomorrow, and you'll hear me calling my producer, Dana Chivas, to tell her and you about day 1 of Adnan's hearing.
This is a Global Tel-Link prepaid call from
Adnan Syed,
an inmate at a Maryland Correctional Facility. This call will be recorded.
I definitely understand that someone could look at this and say, oh man, he must be lying. It's so coincidental.
What did he tell you?
He told me that she had broke his heart. It was extremely wrong for anyone to treat him that way.
Why would you admit to doing something that drastic if you hadn't done it?
There's no way that she was at Best Buy at 2:36.
Did anybody else use the phone?
I think the odds of you getting the charming sociopath, you're just not that lucky.
It sounds believable.
Even now, it would be nice if there was some technicality, something that would prove his innocence. Great,
But I think you might be that technicality.
Perhaps I'll never be able to explain it. And it is what it is. If someone believes me or not, I have no control over it.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Are you recording?
I am recording.
Okay, so I am also recording here in the studio in New York, so let's sync up our sound.
Hi.
Where are you?
I'm in a hotel room.
Oh.
I'm in the closet of the hotel room, like in the... And I've got some pillows behind my back, but then on either, I'm flanked by these two very racy bathrobes. One is like a leopard print and one is a zebra print, and they're hanging on either side of me. But it's making a good little sound studio here.
Like the classy podcast host you are.
I feel very swelligant right now.
So, how'd it go?
It was I found it fascinating. I found all of it fascinating.
Yeah, who were the players in there today? Who were the first people who testified and
Yeah, so the first half of the day was establishing that Cristina Gutierrez, Adnan's trial attorney, back, in the original criminal trial, had been declining in a bunch of ways, sort of physically, professionally, financially. So there were two attorneys who had worked with her from the mid to late 90s and 99 obviously is when she takes Adnan's case, who testified of like how bad it got, and it did seem like it was pretty bad from their testimony, like that she was in physical pain, she was passing off cases to people because she was overwhelmed. Her performance in the courtroom seemed sort of definitely not how she had been, which was kind of this like legendary, sought after, very successful defense attorney, and that she just was like her powers were definitely waning. But sort of more to the point was this question of why would she not have called, why would she not have looked into Asia McClain as a possible alibi witness for her client, for Adnan?
Uh-huh.
And is there any strategic reason why you would not check into this person for her not to call Asia McClain?
Okay.
And then, the big witness of the day was Asia McClain.
Tell me about Asia. Like, what did she say? What was that like?
It was, I have to say, like, it was kind of intense in the courtroom when she was testifying, and it was like, I don't even know totally how to talk about it, but like cereal was a part of her testimony. So that was also just a very strange, a little bit surreal, like, is this happening right now?
Right.
Moment, because the way that I first learned about the case, right, was just like, there's been this miscarriage of justice. Like, there was this key witness who was never heard from, and she would have provided the perfect alibi, and she was never heard from, and it's just like, this gross negligence happened. And so it all, remember this? Like, this was how we opened the whole thing, was just like, we just need to find this girl and find out what she will say.
Yeah, it was like she was the key to this thing.
She's the key to this thing,
I remember
right?
feeling like that, yeah.
Yeah, like, this can't be that hard. Like, we'll just track her down and see what she says, right?
Right.
And then we do track her down, and then it's not that simple, right? It's not at all. It's so much more complicated than her, whatever. Just to see her sort of stride in the courtroom, and she's pretty striking looking also. She's beautiful.
Oh, really?
And she's kind of tall, and she had these like very high heels on, and she looked, very put together, and she's got like bright red lipstick, and so it was like, wow, there she is. There was just like a lot of drama in the room when she was testifying.
Why though? What was the thing she was saying that was causing this drama?
I think because there had been so much talk about her and about what she might have said, would have said, parsing everything she said, parsing her letters, parsing her affidavit, parsing the stuff that she said to me. And then to just hear her say these things that sounded like very straightforward.
Which were what?
Which were kind of arresting. Like, I don't know. She was just saying, like, she was very sure of herself and very sure about what she remembered, which is like, this same thing we've been hearing, right? Which is like, I remember I was in the library, the Woodlawn Public Library, after school on January 13th, 1999, starting at about 10:45 or so. I was waiting for hours for my boyfriend to pick me up. He was super late. I was super bored. As soon as school ended, I remember Adnan walked in. We chat, like this whole thing. We chatted for 15, 20 minutes.
Like, did it land? Like when she
yeah,
you're talking about
that's
the,
what I'm
sort of
saying.
the emotion and the potential.
I think it totally did land. She seemed very normal, and then she said these like very idealistic things that I think that's probably also what made people kind of emotional, like where she said, I'm trying to find it. I mean, they were just so simple, the things that she said, but she was sort of like, so Adnan's attorney, Justin Brown, said, why did you want to testify? And she just said, I felt for justice to be served. We should put all the information on the table. I just thought it was the right thing to do. I was scribbling like crazy in my notebook. I was like just sort of scribbling. So I was like just super focused on writing, and so was everyone around me. It was just like scribble, 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 So I didn't really look around the room, but more I was trying to see what Adnan's face was doing.
Could you see his face from where you were sitting?
No, I
couldn't. Were you
just
sort of looking at the back of his head, or what?
I was sort of looking at the back of his head. I was trying to see if he was even looking at who was testifying, and I couldn't tell. To me, it seemed a lot like he was just sort of looking down or looking straight in front of him, like at the table in front of him. He was very, very still the entire proceeding.
Really?
Yeah, like barely moving. Like he would shift occasionally, but almost like he just became a stone.
Huh. Asia today on the stand, did you find it was still as compelling what she was saying, that simple thing she had to say? Was that still as compelling to you now, today?
Hearing her explain her letters, like things in her letters that seemed a little like, what does that mean? And so she sort of went through the letters.
Oh, like what?
So she said, this is pretty detailed, but there's a part of one of her letters where she says, if you need me, like maybe I can help you account for some of your unaccounted for time between the hours of 2:15 and 8 p.m. You know how she says that in one of the letters? And that's also one of the things in the original post-conviction hearing that Judge Welch noted in his opinion, where he's saying, it just sounds like she's offering to lie. It sounds as if she's offering to lie.
Or something. That was
that maybe she's flirting or like
with Adnan.
This is a very big window of time. So like what she's saying, like I can make sense. And so Adnan's attorney had her explain, like, well, what do you mean by that? And she said, oh, well, I had been to Adnan's house that day to tell his family, like, if you know what I knew. And they told me he was struggling to account for that afternoon. Like he couldn't really remember what happened after school, between school and going to the mosque at around 8 o'clock. So that was the period of time. So she was saying, I can account for this little slice of that period if you need.
Oh,
and so it was
so that's why she writes the letter in the first place.
Yeah. Right. So that kind of thing was interesting. Not interesting, but it just felt like, oh, I got it. Okay. It all seemed like very straightforward and clear. She came off really well for the defense, and we have yet to see what the state's going to do to her tomorrow. Like that will continue tomorrow. They started, and you could see like they are going to go really hard on her, I think. And,
oh, really?
Yeah, I think
like how
so.
could you tell?
Because of how they even started. I mean, the prosecutor's tough. He's tough. I'm not totally sure what their plan is with Asia, but I think what they're going to try to do is, I don't think they're going to try to like discredit her exactly, but I think what they're going to say is, you think of yourself as a person with a really precise memory, but here are some ways in which we're going to show you that your memory isn't as precise as you think it is. And so I'm totally speculating here, but to show that if you had gotten on the stand back at Adnan's trial, this testimony wouldn't have worked very well. It wouldn't have changed the course of the trial. Because here's all these ways I can poke holes in what you're saying in your testimony.
Oh, and so he was starting to poke holes?
He wasn't starting to poke holes yet. Like he didn't get that far. It got late and then we stopped. But he was clearly trying to, he was sort of laying the foundation for her to not remember stuff.
Oh, so like to ask her questions that she's going to have to flounder a little bit and then ultimately say something that's either not satisfying or
like a bunch of times she had to say like, I don't remember. I'm not sure. I don't remember. I'm not clear. I could speculate if you want, but I don't know. I'm not sure. And they didn't have anything they weren't directly related to her statement. So it was like, did you play sports? Yes, I did. I played volleyball and basketball. Well, did you have basketball practice that day? I don't think so. I'm not sure. I don't think so though. So you had basketball practice or you didn't? It was like that. But a lot of that. Just like small things. So
But Sarah, do you think they're doing this to say you're remembering a different day?
I think it's possible that's where they're going.
But you think maybe that's the direction they're going in?
I think, I mean, it's the direction I'd go in if I were the state. Yeah.
Right. All right. So you're going back to the courthouse tomorrow?
I am. It's starting again 9:30 tomorrow morning.
All right. So you will check back in with me.
Yeah, I'll call you tomorrow.
All right. Talk to you tomorrow.
Bye. Hello.
Are you back in your boudoir?
Yeah, I am. I really like it in here now. I might just stay in here all night.
All right. So today was the second day of the hearing.
Yes.
How did it go for Asia today?
They really went after her. Today was mostly the state cross-examining her, and they really attacked her testimony in a bunch of ways. One of the things they brought up was this whole snow issue. Because you remember when I talked to her on the phone that time, when I was reporting the story, she called me. She said she remembered that day specifically, January 13th, 1999.
The day Hay goes missing.
The day Hay goes missing. She remembered seeing Adnan in the library, and she said to me, because of the snow. Do you remember that?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, she was like, I remember it because it was the first snow of the year, and there was all the snow. And the state today, the prosecutor, he was like, are you sure you have the right day? Because there wasn't snow that day, was there? Like, he sort of referenced what she had said to me. And
I mean, that was something we kind of had a question about too, because she was very clear with you. She got snowed in at her boyfriend's house, and then the next 2 days were snow days. So she's very clear that she ties this memory to the snow, right? But,
yeah.
And but we kind of wondered about that.
Yeah, because we looked up the weather, right? And it hadn't snowed. There was a horrible ice storm that had started like in the wee hours of the next morning, but there wasn't snow. It was terrible weather, and it was like a big emergency in Baltimore, but it was an ice storm. And so she kind of, I mean, she did a fairly good job with it. I mean, she just said like, yeah, I don't know. I know it was bad weather. I'm not sure if it was snow or ice or whatever. I just remember it was like hazardous bad weather. School was canceled after that. And she was like, and I remember I was happy about it because I had used the excuse of bad weather as a reason to stay later at my boyfriend Derek's house. And my mom bought it. And then she was like, and I remember because I'd stayed out later, I was happy that then school was canceled for the next 2 days. So it sounded pretty specific.
Very specific, actually.
I don't know, but I have to say she was very cool and collected about it. It wasn't, she didn't seem frazzled or freaked out, or she was just like, yeah, I don't know, bad snow, ice, I don't know, it was bad weather.
Huh.
Yeah, she seemed completely confident in her memories, even when I was thinking like, uh-oh. Like, even when I was thinking, like, wait a minute.
Wait, what happened?
Didn't seem like she...
So what happened?
Yeah, well, so the main thing that happened that at least was new to me as a theory about Asia's alibi, and that made me think, like, wait a minute, let me rethink this. And in fact, I asked you guys to go scrambling back to the records that we have, our detectives notes and stuff.
This is the Jawan stuff.
Yes, the Jawan stuff. Because the prosecutor, Vignaraja, went after her for a long time about the second letter that she wrote to Adnan right after he got arrested.
So we should just take a step back and explain what these letters are that you're talking about. So Asia wrote Adnan 2 letters. She wrote him the first letter the day after he was arrested, I think, March 1st, 1999. And that's this handwritten note where she's sort of saying to him, I've just been to your house, I met your parents, and I want to tell you that I remember talking to you that day, January 13th, 1999. I remember seeing you in the library. So then the next day she writes him another letter, and this one is a little bit different. It's a little bit longer. It's typed up. She seems to be writing it in like from one of her classes at school. And in that one, she sort of reiterates again, like, I remember seeing you in the library that day, so let me know if you need me to speak up about that.
Right. So today, the second letter, the typed one, was the issue today. So the state is really pressing her over and over to say, are you sure you really wrote this letter on March 2nd? Because it's dated March 2nd. And in fact, it's dated it's a 3-page letter, and at the bottom of each page it says March 2nd. And she keeps saying, yes, I am. Yep. And he's pointing to things in the letter that suggest it was written later, because she's got all of this fairly specific information about Adnan's case and about the crime and the way the crime unfolded. And he's suggesting, like, how would you have known all this stuff?
What were some of the things the prosecutor was pointing to in the letter as, like, how would you know this or that?
There were several things. One was she notes that Hay was found in a shallow grave. Another was that she talks about someone else referencing fibers from Adnan on Hay's body.
So the prosecutor is saying, like, it's too soon for any of those details to have been out in the public 2 days after Adnan has been arrested.
Right.
Is that what he's kind of saying?
That's what he's suggesting. In fact, he's not really correct about that, because then Justin Brown, Adnan's defense attorney, stood up after that and showed exhibits of Baltimore Sun stories dated prior to Asia's letter that talk about these, that have these very phrases in them.
Oh.
Shallow grave,
Oh.
you know, Leakin Park, that, you know, so that didn't hold up very well.
Oh.
But there was this one thing and this was the thing that I was like, and that is, he's asking her, did Adnan ever contact you from jail? And she's like, no. And he says, did he ever call you? No. Did he, send you letters? She's like, nope. And he says, well, how do you explain, if Adnan never contacted you, how would you explain notes from a detective's interview with Adnan's friend? This is a kid named Jawan Gordon. And in these notes, it says that Jawan told the cops that Adnan had written a letter to a girl and asked her to type it up, but she got the address wrong.
And what does that mean? Like, what does that imply?
I think he was trying to imply that Adnan had contacted Asia and had asked her to type up this letter in this way.
This March 2nd letter.
But he's implying it wasn't actually written March 2nd. It was written perhaps weeks later.
Oh.
That maybe he engineered that, and that maybe Adnan asked her to type up this letter.
Huh.
Yeah. And then I was like, well, what does that mean? Does that mean she doesn't remember what she thinks she remembers? Or does that mean she's lying? And Adnan did contact her? And what does that mean? And so, it starts to make her sort of very pure story about being just a potential alibi who wanted to step forward and do the right thing to look like something slightly different. And so that's why I asked you guys to look up notes from that detective's interview with Jawan.
Okay, so I'm looking at the detective notes from their interview with Jawan on April 9th, and they didn't record that interview, so all I've got are these kind of cryptic detective's notes. So I'll just read those to you, and this is what they say. I think this is what the prosecutor is referencing. It says, Adnan wrote me a letter, and remember, at this time, Adnan is in jail. So Adnan wrote me a letter. He called yesterday, but I wasn't home. Wrote Adnan back. He wrote a letter to a girl to type up with his address on it, but she got it wrong. And then there's an address, 101 East Eager Street, which is the incorrect address for central booking. And then it says Asia with a question mark, 12th grade. I got one, Justin Adger got one. And Justin Adger was a friend of Adnan's and I guess was Asia's ex-boyfriend. But I'm just saying, those are pretty cryptic, and I could also see that note as implying that Adnan wrote a letter to a girl and asked her, could you please give my friends the address so that they can write me letters? And that's all it means.
That's true. I mean, right.
And then she gets the address wrong, and it's I can just imagine how this could play out in a totally innocent, different way from what the prosecutor seems to be suggesting.
The one line that stops me is he wrote a letter to a girl to type up. And I don't know. It's true. It's not clear. It's not clear what this totally means. But here's the thing. It does make you pause, right? And that's his entire point. That's the prosecutor's entire point, is that I can throw a bunch of suspicion on Asia's story in all of these various ways. And if I can do it here before you today in this hearing, that means the prosecutors back at Adnan's criminal trial back in 1999, 2000 could have done the same thing.
So the state is showing, look, maybe she's not such an ironclad alibi after all. And if she's not such an ironclad alibi, then maybe Cristina Gutierrez did have a very good reason for not pursuing her.
It wasn't a mistake. It was a strategy. That's what he's trying to show.
So what did you think? Did you buy that? Right?
Did I buy it? I mean, I would say, I don't think that he proved that she didn't write the letter on March 2nd or anything like that. And she seemed very comfortable just saying, I don't know what those notes about Jawan mean, but I wrote this letter March 2nd. I never heard from Adnan. She just was very forthright about it, or seemed very forthright about it, I should say. And, but it did, it did make me think well, it does make you wonder what could have happened at trial and whether it would have been this slam dunk for Adnan necessarily,
Okay, so can we talk about the main event of the day, which is the cell phone testimony, which I've been waiting patiently to get to?
I know. I so wished you were there today, Dana. Honestly, I was like, Dana would be eating this up. I was drooling partway through. I mean, it was hard to.
It was that exciting?
So it's really important is the thing, but it's hard to sink your teeth into in terms of emotion, but it's no, it was, it was interesting. So basically today there was not a big bombshell on this issue, but I think they're setting the stage for one. So it turns out that the AT&T cell tower the AT&T cell tower expert who testified at Adnan's original trial in 2000, it turns out that there was this disclaimer on those records, on a fax cover sheet for those records back in 1999 that said, you can't use incoming calls. They're not reliable for location status. Incoming calls are not reliable for location status. And why that's important is because the two phone calls that place Adnan in Leakin Park at the time that Jay said they were burying the body are incoming calls, right? So what happened was this fall, just recently, that same cell tower expert wrote an affidavit saying, I didn't know about that disclaimer about not using the incoming calls for location. So now he's saying, I'm not sure now about my testimony. I'm not sure I could say that those two calls placed the phone in Leakin Park. So that guy did not testify today, actually, but the defense team brought in this other expert who said, yes, that disclaimer was very, very important. And they spent a lot of the afternoon arguing the state and the defense over basically the meaning of location on those cell tower records, like how to interpret the word location.
I'm really jealous that you get to be there for that tomorrow. No, I actually am, because this is actually really important. This cell phone disclaimer thing is something that's bugged me for a really long time. Because it's sort of like if that is in fact the case that you can't use incoming calls for location data, then that kind of means there's a chance that cell phone was not in Leakin Park when the prosecution at the original trial said it was. So it's
a real problem for the state. Yeah, it's a real problem if it's not true. So this might really get answered tomorrow of whether that's a real thing, that you can't use incoming calls for location.
That would make me really happy if they could answer that.
Stay tuned, man. It's going to keep going.
All right, so you'll call me tomorrow?
Yes, I will.
This is Sarah Koenig. Please leave a message.
Damn it,
if
Sarah.
If you would like to email me.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So it's Friday night. You're in Baltimore.
It's Friday night in Baltimore.
So you ended the day yesterday, and there's this one big question, which is, was the phone in Leakin Park? And I'm very curious to know if you got an answer to that question.
So, I don't know.
You texted me at lunchtime and said you had an answer for me.
What I have the answer to is the thing you're dying to know is, what does AT&T mean when it says you can't use incoming calls for location status? So here's the answer that the state's expert said today. What that means is it's referring not to cell towers, but it's referring to the switch, the sort of the giant brain of all this, of the cell towers in an area.
It's the thing that decides like which tower handles which call.
I believe so. You probably know about that better than I do, but yeah. Okay. And so he's saying the best explanation he could. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you this. The switch that covers the DC Baltimore area.
Yeah.
Or at least the one that did in 1999. I don't know if it's the same one, but it's called the dog bone, which I thought was funny.
The dog bone? Why?
Because it covers 2 metropolitan areas. So it's like, like a ball at one end and a ball at the other.
Oh, right.
Thing of it. Yeah, like a dog
obviously.
bone. I thought,
of course you
did that just sound dirty when I said that?
The dog bone.
Apparently AT&T folks in the know call it the dog bone. Anyway, what he's saying, the best explanation that this cell tower expert gave, he's an FBI agent. And his specialty is cell tower analysis. Okay, so what he's saying is, what that disclaimer means is, for example, say I live in Atlanta. That's my home switch is going to be Atlanta. Say I get on an airplane, I turn my phone off, I get on an airplane, I fly to Baltimore, and I arrive in Baltimore, I don't turn on my phone. Like I don't enter right away the Baltimore cellular network, but calls are coming into my phone while it's off. Those calls on a call log, on a record of my activity, will show the Atlanta switch for those calls when I'm actually in Baltimore, but my phone doesn't know yet that I'm in Baltimore.
That is actually a question that I have had for like 2 years.
I know. But this FBI expert is saying that doesn't apply to the Leakin Park calls, because the issue with those Leakin Park calls was cell towers, not switches.
So he's saying the cell testimony at the trial was fine.
Yeah. Well, he's saying there's one call actually that he disagrees with. And for anyone who's got the call log in front of them, it's the 514 call, which is a voicemail call. But yeah, basically, other than that one call, he's saying he thought that the cell tower expert who testified at Adnan's original trial did a perfectly fine job, and he agreed with that testimony. But the cell expert who testified for Adnan's side, who testified yesterday, disagreed completely. And he is saying that that original cell testimony from Adnan's trial doesn't hold up because the expert back then never saw that disclaimer, and that disclaimer does apply to cell towers. So that's the problem. And they're going to continue to fight about that. This is going to be a brawl over this thing. And it's still going. Like they're not done cross-examining him.
I see.
And they added another day to the hearing on Monday. And I could even see it going beyond Monday, frankly. They have a lot to cover.
Okay.
So this is not settled at all.
This is not tied up. All right.
No,
So what else happened today?
So the rest of the day was all about the alibi issue. And 2 things happened in that. One is that Adnan's side put on an investigator, and they had hired an investigator, and they basically said, look, they gave Cristina Gutierrez's entire alibi witness list that she had disclosed to the state back in the day before the first trial.
Cristina Gutierrez, Adnan's original defense attorney?
his original defense attorney, the one who all this is about. And she had 80 some names on this list, right? It's like this huge long list. So Justin Brown's team had said to this investigator, all right, go find as many people as you can off this list and find out if they spoke to Christina Gutierrez or her office back then. And what he said is he was able to get in touch with 41 people. Of those, 4 people said they had spoken to Christina, and none of them was spoken to about being an alibi witness.
Only
even though
4
this
people?
is only 4 people.
Wow.
And so it was one of those things where you're like, whoa, that doesn't sound good, you know?
No.
It was like, yeah. But then the state came back and sort of showed a bunch of documents from her files, all of which you and I have seen. I mean, they're all stuff we have as well. And I remember these too. And, you know, it does show that they were doing some work to find witnesses, to find alibi witnesses, to speak to people, to subpoena people. So it was a little bit mushy, like the back and forth of that. It felt like sort of a draw or something. I don't know. It like clearly whatever she did wasn't great. That wasn't her defense. Like she just didn't go that route. Possibly for, you know, lack of trying, but she didn't do nothing on it. So it was a little hard to...
Sounds inconclusive.
It was inconclusive who won that round, I have to say.
Was there a superstar witness today or something like that?
Yeah, so the most drama probably that happened was that this guy, Dave Irwin, testified for the defense as an expert witness on criminal defense.
So he's he's a criminal defense attorney?
Yeah, longtime attorney. You know, he's been an attorney since the early 70s, and he had worked as a prosecutor. He'd worked as an assistant AG. He'd worked for the Justice Department. He has his own private practice as a litigator. He, you know, teaches how to do criminal defense work. I mean, he's
well-versed.
Yeah, distinguished career.
Okay.
And he was just so unequivocal about how there's no excuse he can think of for why she didn't investigate, at the minimum, investigate Asia. And he just put it in such in like just no uncertain terms. Like he basically said, if you have a credible alibi witness, that is the best possible defense you can have, right? And so he's like, that's what you're always looking for. And he told this parable actually about a long time ago when he was saying he was a prosecutor at the time, and he had this case, and the defense put up this alibi witness who said, you know, actually at the time of the crime, I saw the defendant on a bus traveling to Philadelphia or somewhere like that. And he said he sort of came back at this woman, and he said she was like this, you know, lovely young woman, and said like, well, how do you know you had the right day? And she goes, well, it was my birthday. And so the day really stuck out to me. Yeah, he said it was totally humbling to me. And he said, ever since I've been looking for Asia McClain. I was just like, oh my God. Because he was saying how that case really reminded him of this one because it was the same kind of witness, right? Like, that's who you want.
Oh, like that's an Asia McClain? Like that's the caliber that she was?
That was that case's Asia McClain. Yeah. And
so
he's saying
and he
lost
Asia
the
McClain
case.
is the same caliber as this woman who remembers the date specifically because it was her birthday? That's what
Exactly. Very believable, very credible, very likable. And then Justin Brown kind of ticked through all the things that the state had criticized about her letters and her memories of, like, you know, the small inconsistencies, or it seems like she's too eager to help, or couldn't have possibly contradicted, you know, a statement that Adnan had said to the police about where he was. And he was just like, no. He was like, everything about her letters seemed like assets to him. He was like, first of all, she's bringing up the surveillance stuff, the possible surveillance cameras in the library. And he's like, regardless of whether it exists, the fact that she wants it to exist means she's so confident in what she remembers that she wants it corroborated, right? So that's good. That she's just very confident in what she remembers.
That's true.
She's saying she's not really good friends with Adnan or with Hay. And he's like, that's perfect because she knows them both, but she's not going to be biased. because she's not good friends with either one of them.
Yeah.
He said, the fact that she's offering up her boyfriend and her boyfriend's friend, who had come to pick her up at the library, who could back her up. So he's like, she's giving you 2 more witnesses. He's like, she's perfect. And he said, in a situation like that, you immediately pounce, you move as fast as possible, and you go in person, talk to that witness. Always. You always check out the possible
very
alibi
convincing.
witness. It was he was just so categorical about it. It was like, no, and then he said, in terms of what he thought it could have done for Adnan's case, he called it a game changer. He said, it would have changed the ball game's result. And that's, of course, the thing, right, that Adnan's side needs to show, is that it would have changed the outcome of the trial if she had testified at the time. And so his upshot was just like, his analysis was Christina's lawyering fell below the standard required by law, basically.
He sounds like a very good witness for the defense.
He was a great witness for the defense. I mean,
I feel convinced.
Well, but hold off, because they did not cross-examine him. So the state has not had its crack at that guy.
Okay. And like you said before, this didn't turn out to be the last day of the hearing, and they're going to continue on Monday?
Yeah, they're going to continue on Monday.
Okay.
But I can't be here Monday. I can't cover it Monday.
No. We need you to go home.
I know. So I have to do our season 2 podcast. I have to make the next episode, or it won't happen.
We need you to do that.
I think what we'll do is I'll cover it in some way. Definitely when the judge rules, probably something on our website. So
when you write that, we'll definitely let people know on the email. It'll be on the website.
Okay. Yeah. That sounds good.
Do we know when? We don't know when the judge will rule.
I don't know. I mean, he'll probably take some weeks and do it carefully and come up with his ruling. I mean, he seems, he seems very deliberate and very, I don't know. He seems to be listening very, very carefully.
Can you just explain what the possible outcomes are? Like, what are the possible things that he could decide?
Right. So, I mean, all of this is about, will this judge decide that he thinks Adnan should get a new trial? So if he decides that he thinks Adnan should get a new trial based on these issues, I mean, I gotta think the state will appeal that. So an appeal will happen.
Okay.
If he says, no, I don't think Adnan should get a new trial, then it goes back to the Court of Special Appeals for them to decide what to do.
So probably either way, the outcome will be...
It's going to go back to the appeals court. But that said, it's like, this does not feel like some sort of like technical bump along the way that like they're just sort of getting through to get things on the record. It feels like it's a real sort of like fight for survival in there. It feels like a mini trial, really, is what's happening. Even though it's not a trial, that is how it feels. All right, I should probably hang up.
All right, I'm going to let you go.
Bye, Dana.
Okay, by the way, I quit because I'm going to go join the FBI cell phone investigatory division.
Oh, no, it's not called that.
What's it called?
It's called CAST, Cellular Analysis Survey Team. That's what you need to join.
CAST.
You could be a CAST member.